Hi, Master Peter Brusso here. I apologize for this one lesson being so darn long, but there's a lot of information in it. I don't typically go past an hour unless it's a podcast. So I'll apologize first, but you can speed down the line and see the section you want to listen or learn from. So without any further ado, here we go.
Before we begin, this video provides educational information only and is not legal, medical, or psychological advice. Self-defense laws vary significantly by state and jurisdiction. Always consult with qualified professionals in your area for advice specific to your situation. You are responsible for understanding and complying with all applicable laws where you live. You survived. The immediate threat is over. But your decisions in the next few minutes and hours will determine whether you truly survive this encounter. The aftermath is when many people who successfully defend themselves make critical mistakes that can destroy their lives. This video will prepare you for what comes next. Statistics show that more people who successfully defend themselves face legal problems due to their actions after the encounter than during it. We're going to change that by preparing you for every aspect of what happens when the fight is over. Immediate actions after an encounter. Secure and assess. First 30 seconds. Is the threat truly neutralized? The fight is over, but your survival instincts need to stay engaged for a few more critical minutes. Your adrenaline is pumping, your heart is racing, and every fiber of your being wants to either celebrate your survival or collapse from exhaustion. Resist both urges. The most dangerous assumption you can make right now is that the threat is completely over. Look at your attacker carefully but maintain your distance. Are they unconscious, or are they conscious but injured? Someone who appears down can recover quickly and attack again, especially if they're motivated by drugs, alcohol, or sheer desperation. If they're conscious but injured, maintain distance while calling for help. Don't assume they're finished just because they're on the ground. Many attackers have surprised defenders by launching a second attack when the defender thought the encounter was over. This is perhaps the most critical assessment you'll make in these first 30 seconds. Attackers often work in pairs or groups, with some hanging back initially to see how the encounter develops. Look for accomplices who may have been waiting in cars, around corners, or in nearby buildings. Check blind spots, doorways, parked cars, corners where others could be hiding. Listen for approaching footsteps, voices, or the sound of car doors closing. Your tunnel vision during the fight may have caused you to miss secondary threats that are still present. Take a moment to scan the entire area around you. Look for movement in your peripheral vision. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Follow your gut feelings. The goal is to identify any additional threats before they can surprise you when your guard is down. Did your attacker have a weapon that's now on the ground? This is crucial information for both your immediate safety and your legal defense. If there's a weapon present, it dramatically supports your claim that you were in fear for your life. However, how you handle this evidence can make or break your legal case. If it's safe to do so, secure any weapons, but don't handle them unnecessarily. Your fingerprints on an attacker's weapon can be misinterpreted later. Instead, note the exact location of any weapons for police. Take a mental snapshot of where everything is. Be aware that attackers often carry backup weapons, a knife in addition to a gun, or multiple knives. Don't assume that the weapon you see is the only one they had. Move to a position where you can see approaching threats, but don't flee the scene entirely. Get your back to a wall or solid structure if possible. This prevents anyone from approaching you from behind. However, stay close enough to the scene that when help arrives, it's immediately clear that you're the victim who called for help, not someone who was involved and tried to escape. Don't chase a fleeing attacker under any circumstances. The moment they're running away, the threat to your life has ended, and any further violence on your part could be seen as retaliation rather than self-defense. Let them go. Your goal was survival, not punishment, and you've achieved that goal. Focus on securing the scene and getting help, not on pursuing someone who's no longer a threat. Call for help immediately. Your call to 911 is not just about getting help, it's creating the first official record of what happened, and this record will be crucial to your legal defense. Every word you say will likely be recorded and could be played in court later. This isn't the time for a detailed story, it's the time for clear, factual information that establishes you as the victim. Start with your identification and location. This is your name, exact address or specific location. Be as precise as possible about where you are. If you're not sure of the exact address, describe landmarks or cross streets. The faster help can find you, the better your situation becomes. Then immediately establish the nature of the incident. I was just attacked and had to defend myself. This phrasing is crucial because it identifies you as the victim and establishes that your actions were defensive, not aggressive. Continue with your immediate needs. I need police and medical assistance immediately. Even if you think you're not injured, request medical assistance anyway. This shows that you're thinking clearly about safety, and it ensures that medical personnel will be available to document any injuries you might have that aren't immediately apparent. Describe the attacker's current status honestly. The attacker is conscious but injured, or the attacker is unconscious, or the attacker fled on foot. Finally, briefly state your own condition. I am injured, or I don't believe I'm seriously injured, but I need to be checked. The dispatcher will keep you talking until help arrives, and this serves multiple purposes. They're gathering information for the responding officers, they're keeping you calm and focused, and they're creating a continuous record of your mental state and the scene conditions. Answer their questions directly and honestly, but stick to basic facts about what happened. Don't describe your defensive techniques in detail over the phone. You don't need to explain exactly how you struck the attacker or what martial arts techniques you used. Keep it simple. I defended myself, or I did whatever I had to do to stop the attack. Remember that this call is being recorded and will likely be used as evidence. Your tone and words should reflect someone who was attacked and defended themselves, not someone who was eager for a fight. Certain phrases can destroy your legal defense before it even begins, even if they don't accurately reflect what happened. Never say, "I think I killed him," even if the person appears to be seriously injured or unconscious. You're not a medical professional, and declaring someone dead when they're not can make you sound callous or like you intended to kill rather than defend yourself. Avoid saying, "I beat him up." This makes it sound like you were the aggressor or that you continued attacking after the threat ended. Don't say, "I snapped and lost control." This suggests that your actions weren't rational self-defense but rather an emotional outburst. Anything that makes you sound like the aggressor or like you lost control can be used to argue that you used excessive force or that you weren't really defending yourself. Document everything while fresh. Your memory of this incident will never be clearer than it is right now. In a few hours, as the adrenaline fades and the emotional impact sets in, details will become fuzzy or will shift in your mind. Some memories will become more vivid, while others will fade entirely. This is normal, but it can create problems if your story seems to change between your initial statement and later testimony. Take a mental snapshot of everything you can remember about the incident. What time of day was it, and what were the lighting conditions? Was it broad daylight, dusk, or dark? Were there street lights or other sources of illumination? What were the weather conditions? Was it raining, which might have affected visibility or footing? Who was where when the attack started? Try to remember the exact sequence of events in chronological order. What did the attacker say, if anything? Did they make demands for money or property? Did they threaten you verbally before attacking? These verbal statements can be crucial in establishing that this was an unprovoked attack and that you had reason to fear for your safety. Even seemingly minor details like the attacker's clothing, approximate height and weight, or distinctive features can become important later. Physical evidence. Use your phone to photograph everything while the evidence is fresh and clear. Start with your injuries, even if they seem minor. Adrenaline can mask pain and make injuries seem less significant than they actually are. Take photos from multiple angles and in good lighting if possible. These photos will be crucial in supporting your claim that you were attacked and feared for your safety. Take pictures of any torn clothing, broken items, or property damage. If your shirt was ripped during the struggle, photograph it. If your phone screen was cracked when you fell, document it. If there are bloodstains on the ground or on your clothing, photograph them before they dry or get cleaned up. Photo the scene from multiple angles if it's safe to do so, showing the overall area, the specific spot where the attack occurred, and any relevant environmental factors. Note any security cameras that might have captured the incident. Look for cameras on nearby buildings, ATMs, parking lots, or traffic intersections. You can't access this footage yourself, but knowing it exists and pointing it out to police can be crucial for your defense. Make a mental note of exactly where these cameras are positioned and what they likely captured. Witness information. Witnesses can make or break your case, and they have a tendency to disappear if they're not identified immediately. Look for people who saw what happened, whether they're pedestrians, people in nearby cars, residents looking out windows, or employees of nearby businesses. Anyone who witnessed any part of the encounter, from the initial approach by the attacker to the aftermath, can provide valuable testimony. Approach witnesses while they're still present and ask for their names and contact information. Most people are willing to help if they're asked directly and politely. Ask if they're willing to speak to police about what they saw. Be specific about what you're asking. Excuse me, did you see what just happened? Would you be willing to give your contact information to the police and tell them what you saw? Don't let witnesses leave before police arrive if at all possible. Once people leave the scene, they can be incredibly difficult to track down later. If someone says they need to leave before police arrive, get their contact information and ask them to call the police later to give a statement. However, try to convince them to stay if possible. Their immediate testimony will be much more credible than a statement given days later. Preserve evidence. Don't disturb the scene. The scene itself tells the story of what happened, and disturbing it can damage your legal defense. Resist the urge to clean up, straighten things out, or make the area look normal again. Every broken item, every drop of blood, every scuff mark on the ground is potential evidence that supports your account of being attacked. Don't move anything unless it's absolutely necessary for immediate safety. Don't clean up blood, broken glass, or disturbed items. Don't straighten chairs that were knocked over or pick up items that were scattered during the struggle. The scene needs to look exactly as it did when the encounter ended. This physical evidence corroborates your story and helps investigators understand the dynamics of what happened. Leave everything exactly as it happened until police arrive and document the scene. The position of objects, the pattern of blood drops, the location of personal items, all of these details help paint a picture of an unprovoked attack and your necessary defense. Moving things around, even with innocent intentions, can create inconsistencies that undermine your credibility later. Your clothing and personal items are crucial pieces of evidence that support your claim of being attacked. Don't change clothes if possible. They're evidence of the struggle and the force used against you. A torn shirt, scuffed shoes, or a broken watch band all tell the story of a violent encounter that you didn't initiate. Don't wash your hands until after police have had a chance to document everything. There may be evidence under your fingernails or on your hands that supports your account. This might include the attacker's DNA from when you defended yourself or residue from objects you used to defend yourself. Keep any items that were damaged during the attack, no matter how trivial they might seem. A broken pair of glasses, a damaged purse, or a cracked phone screen all demonstrate the violence of the encounter. Note if anything was stolen or scattered during the struggle. This can help establish the attacker's intent and support your claim that this was a criminal attack. If you used keys, a pen, your phone, or any other everyday object to defend yourself, note exactly where these items are and don't disturb them. These improvised weapons support your story of self-defense and show that you used whatever was available to protect yourself rather than seeking out a confrontation. Don't clean or put away anything you used to defend yourself. If you used your keys to strike the attacker, don't wipe them off or put them back in your pocket. If you used a pen, leave it where it fell. These items may have evidence on them that supports your account, and moving or cleaning them destroys that evidence. Let police collect and document everything themselves. Your job is to point out what happened and where things are, not to handle the evidence. Professional documentation of these improvised weapons helps establish that you used reasonable force with whatever was available, rather than planning for violence or using excessive force. When police arrive, they're entering a chaotic scene where they don't know who the good guy is and who the bad guy is. Their primary concern is controlling the situation and ensuring everyone's safety, including their own. This means they may treat everyone as a potential threat until they can sort out what happened. Understanding this helps you avoid taking their initial caution personally and helps you respond in ways that quickly identify you as the victim. Keep your hands clearly visible at all times. This is not the time to have your hands in your pockets, behind your back, or fumbling around in a bag or purse. Police are trained to watch hands because hands are what hold weapons. Make their job easy by keeping your hands where they can see them. If you need to reach for something, your ID, your phone, or anything else, announce what you're doing before you do it. Officer, I'm reaching for my ID in my back pocket, or I need to get my phone to show you the photos I took. Follow all commands immediately and without argument, even if they seem unnecessary or if you think the officer doesn't understand the situation yet. Move slowly and deliberately. Quick movements can be misinterpreted as aggressive or threatening. Remember, these officers are responding to a call about a violent encounter, and they need to make sure the scene is safe before they can take time to understand the details of what happened. You may be treated as a suspect initially. Don't be surprised or offended if you're temporarily handcuffed, separated from other people, or treated with suspicion initially. This is standard procedure and doesn't mean you're in trouble or that the police think you're guilty of anything. They simply don't know what happened yet, and their job is to secure the scene and protect everyone present until they can sort out the facts. Police officers responding to a violence call have to assume that everyone present could potentially be dangerous until they determine otherwise. They may handcuff everyone involved while they figure out who is who and what happened. This is for their safety and yours. Stay calm and don't take it personally. The temporary inconvenience of being restrained while they investigate is much better than the alternative of an unsafe scene where additional violence could occur. Remember that these officers weren't present during the incident. All they know is that they received a call about a violent encounter, and now they're looking at the aftermath. It may be obvious to you who the victim is and who the attacker is, but it's not necessarily obvious to them. Give them time to assess the situation and gather information. Once officers have secured the scene and are ready to start gathering information, clearly identify yourself as the person who called for help. Use simple, clear statements. Officer, I'm, your name, I called 911, or I'm the victim who called for help, or I was attacked and had to defend myself. This immediately establishes your role in the incident and helps officers understand your perspective. Point out witnesses calmly and without drama. Those people saw what happened, or the person in the blue car witnessed the attack. Don't try to coach witnesses or tell them what to say, but do make sure officers know they're present and willing to give statements. The sooner officers can identify and interview witnesses, the more accurate and useful their testimony will be. Avoid dramatic language or emotional outbursts, even if you're feeling overwhelming relief, anger, or fear. Keep your communication professional and factual. This isn't because your emotions aren't valid, they absolutely are, but because your demeanor in these first interactions creates impressions that can influence how your case is handled. What to say? Your initial statements to police are crucial because they establish the legal framework for your defense. Everything you say should support the legal standard for justified self-defense. The key elements you need to establish are that you were attacked without provocation, that you feared for your safety, that you used only the force necessary to stop the attack, and that you immediately sought help when the threat ended. Start with I was attacked without provocation. This establishes that you didn't start the fight, weren't the aggressor, and weren't engaged in mutual combat. You were the victim of an unprovoked attack. Follow this with I feared for my life and safety, or I was in fear of imminent death or serious bodily harm. This establishes the reasonable fear requirement that justifies the use of force in self-defense. Continue with I defended myself using only the force necessary to stop the attack. This addresses the proportionality requirement that your response was reasonable given the threat you faced. Finally, I stopped as soon as the threat ended and immediately called for help. This shows that your intent was defensive, not punitive, and that you acted responsibly once the immediate danger was over. The legal standard for self-defense varies by jurisdiction, but certain key elements are consistent across most states. You need to establish that you were in immediate fear of death or serious bodily harm, that this fear was reasonable given the circumstances, and that you used no more force than necessary to protect yourself. When you tell police I was in fear of imminent death or serious bodily harm, you're using the exact legal language that courts recognize. This isn't the time to downplay what happened or to minimize the threat you faced. If the attacker was significantly larger than you, had a weapon, made specific threats, or attacked you in a way that could have caused serious injury, make sure this is clear in your statement. If you're in a stand-your-ground state, you might add I couldn't safely retreat to establish that retreat wasn't required or wasn't possible. However, even in states with a duty to retreat, you're not required to retreat if doing so would increase your danger or if retreat isn't safely possible. Requesting legal representation, asking for an attorney doesn't make you look guilty, it makes you look smart. Even innocent people who are clearly victims can say things that accidentally hurt their legal defense. A good attorney helps you tell your story in a way that's both truthful and legally protective. You can say, I'd like to have my attorney present before giving a detailed statement, or I want to cooperate fully, but I'd feel more comfortable with legal counsel present. This expresses your willingness to cooperate while protecting your rights. You might also say, can we schedule a time when my lawyer can be present? I want to make sure I give you a complete and accurate statement. Remember that asking for an attorney doesn't stop the investigation or prevent police from doing their job. They can still collect physical evidence, interview witnesses, and document the scene. What it does is ensure that your statement is given when you're thinking clearly and have proper legal guidance. What not to say. Avoid these phrases. Certain phrases can destroy your legal defense even if they don't accurately reflect what happened or what you intended. I just snapped or I lost control suggests that your actions weren't rational self-defense but rather an emotional outburst or loss of self-control. This can be used to argue that you used excessive force or that you weren't thinking clearly about the necessity of your actions. I wanted to teach him a lesson is perhaps the most damaging thing you can say because it suggests your intent was punitive rather than defensive. Self-defense law protects you when you're trying to stop an attack, not when you're trying to punish someone for attacking you. Even if you felt anger during or after the encounter, which would be completely normal, expressing it this way makes it sound like revenge rather than protection. I'm trained in martial arts or I know how to fight can be used to suggest that you had an unfair advantage or that you should have been able to handle the situation with less force. While your training might have actually helped you survive, mentioning it can complicate your legal defense by suggesting you had options other than the force you used. I've been wanting to use my training is devastating because it suggests premeditation or eagerness for violence. Even if you're proud of your ability to defend yourself, expressing it this way makes it sound like you were looking for an opportunity to hurt someone rather than simply protecting yourself when you had no choice. Don't minimize the threat. It might seem natural to downplay what happened, especially if you're feeling relief that you survived or if you're trying to seem reasonable and nonviolent. However, minimizing the threat you faced undermines your legal justification for using force. He was probably just trying to scare me, or maybe he wasn't really going to hurt me calls into question whether your fear was reasonable and whether force was actually necessary. If you say, I might have overreacted, you're essentially admitting to using excessive force. Even if you're second-guessing yourself, which is normal after a traumatic event, expressing these doubts to police can be used against you later. Stick to what you knew and felt at the time of the attack, not what you're wondering about afterward. Remember that the legal standard is based on what a reasonable person would have believed given the same circumstances, not on what actually might have happened if you had acted differently. Your fear doesn't have to be correct in hindsight, it just has to be reasonable given what you knew at the time. Don't elaborate on techniques. Avoid describing the specific strikes or methods you used to defend yourself. Don't demonstrate what you did or go into detail about your techniques. This information can be used to suggest that you used excessive force or that you enjoyed the violence. It can also be misinterpreted by people who don't understand self-defense techniques. Don't speculate about how much damage you caused or analyze the effectiveness of your defensive actions. Comments like "I hit him pretty hard" or "I think I broke something" can be used to suggest excessive force or a lack of control. Keep it simple: "I defended myself" or "I did what I had to do to stop the attack." The specifics of what you did can be discussed later with your attorney present, when you can provide context and explanation for your actions. In the immediate aftermath, detailed descriptions of your techniques rarely help your case and often hurt it. Your rights. Your constitutional rights don't disappear because you're the victim of a crime or because you had to defend yourself. The Fifth Amendment protects you from being compelled to incriminate yourself, and the Sixth Amendment guarantees your right to legal counsel. These protections exist specifically for situations like this, where emotions are high and the stakes are significant. Understanding these rights helps you make informed decisions about how to interact with police. You're not required to answer every question immediately, and you're not required to provide a detailed account of what happened without legal representation. These rights exist to protect innocent people from accidentally saying things that can be misinterpreted or taken out of context. Many people worry that exercising their rights makes them look guilty, but this is a fundamental misunderstanding of how the legal system works. Police officers and prosecutors are trained to respect these rights and understand that smart, innocent people exercise them. Judges and juries are instructed that exercising constitutional rights cannot be used as evidence of guilt. Cooperation versus your rights. There's an important distinction between cooperating with an investigation and waiving your rights. You can cooperate with identification, providing your name, address, and identification documents. You can cooperate with evidence collection, allowing photographs of your injuries, providing clothing for analysis, or submitting to medical examination. You can cooperate with basic questions about what happened, confirming that you were attacked and that you defended yourself. What you don't have to do is provide a detailed, blow-by-blow account of the incident without legal representation. You don't have to answer questions about your background, your training, your thoughts during the incident, or your feelings about what happened. You can provide the basic framework of what occurred while reserving the details for when you have proper legal guidance. This approach actually helps the investigation by ensuring that your statement is accurate, complete, and legally sound. Rushed statements given under stress often contain inconsistencies or unclear language that can complicate the case later. Taking time to provide a proper statement with legal counsel present usually results in better information for investigators. You have the right to an attorney even if you can't afford one, and this right applies even when you're clearly the victim of a crime. Having legal representation doesn't mean you're hiding something or that you don't want to cooperate. It means you want to ensure that your cooperation is effective and legally protective. You can stop answering questions at any time to request counsel. If you start giving a statement and then realize you're in over your head, you can say, "I'd like to speak with an attorney," before continuing. The questioning must stop immediately, and you cannot be pressured to continue without legal representation. A good attorney doesn't obstruct the investigation, they help you participate in it effectively. They can help you organize your thoughts, identify what information is most important to share, and ensure that your statement supports your legal defense. They can also advise you about potential legal issues you might not have considered and help you avoid common mistakes that can complicate self-defense cases. The 24-hour rule. Why waiting can help. The 24-hour rule recognizes that adrenaline and stress hormones significantly affect your memory, judgment, and ability to communicate clearly. What seems crystal clear in the immediate aftermath of an attack may become confusing or overwhelming when you try to put it into words while your body is still in crisis mode. Adrenaline affects memory formation and recall in complex ways. Some details become hypervivid while others disappear entirely. The sequence of events might seem jumbled, or you might fixate on minor details while forgetting major ones. This is completely normal and is well understood by experienced investigators, but it can create problems if your initial statement seems inconsistent with what you remember later. Taking time for your stress hormones to subside often results in a more complete and accurate account of what happened. Details that seemed unimportant in the moment often emerge as significant later. The timeline of events becomes clearer. Your ability to explain your thoughts and feelings during the incident improves dramatically when you're not still experiencing the physical effects of the trauma. Use the waiting period productively by documenting everything you remember while it's still fresh. Write down the entire sequence of events in chronological order, from the first moment you noticed something was wrong through the aftermath. Include details about what the attacker said, what you were thinking, what you feared might happen, and why you took the actions you did. Note all of your injuries, no matter how minor they seem. Take additional photos if new bruises appear or if injuries become more visible. List all witnesses and their contact information. Gather any additional evidence you might have missed initially, receipts that show you were legitimately in the area, text messages that establish your timeline, or anything else that supports your account. This documentation serves multiple purposes. It helps you organize your thoughts for when you do give a formal statement. It preserves details that might fade from memory. And it demonstrates that you're taking the situation seriously and acting responsibly. A good attorney can help you organize your thoughts and identify which details are most important from a legal perspective. They understand how self-defense law works and can help you frame your experience in terms that support your legal defense. They can also identify potential problems in your account and help you address them proactively. Your attorney can help you understand what questions you're likely to be asked and how to answer them effectively. They can identify gaps in your memory or timeline that need to be addressed and help you think through what additional evidence might be available. They can also advise you about the likely course of the investigation and what to expect in the days and weeks to come. Most importantly, they ensure that your statement supports your legal defense while remaining completely truthful. There's no contradiction between being honest about what happened and presenting that information in a way that clearly establishes your right to defend yourself. Hidden injuries. Why adrenaline masks pain. During a life-threatening encounter, your body floods itself with powerful chemicals designed to help you survive. Adrenaline, endorphins, and other stress hormones create a natural pain-killing effect that can make serious injuries feel like minor discomfort or make you feel nothing at all. This biological response evolved to keep our ancestors fighting or fleeing even when injured, but in the modern world, it can prevent you from recognizing injuries that need immediate medical attention. Your focus during the attack was entirely on survival, not on cataloging injuries or assessing damage. Your brain filtered out pain signals that weren't immediately relevant to staying alive. This means that injuries that would normally send you to the hospital might feel like nothing more than minor soreness or stiffness. The masking effect can last for hours after the incident ends. You might feel invincible or completely fine for several hours, only to wake up the next morning barely able to move. This isn't weakness or imagination, it's your body's natural response to trauma, and it's why medical evaluation is crucial even when you feel fine. A concussion is one of the most dangerous hidden injuries because it affects your brain's ability to function normally, yet it often produces no obvious external symptoms. If you hit your head during the encounter, were thrown to the ground, or were struck hard enough to make you dizzy or disoriented, you may have a concussion even if you don't have a visible head injury. Concussion symptoms can be delayed and can worsen over time without proper medical attention. Fractured ribs are surprisingly common in physical altercations and can be life-threatening if they puncture internal organs. You might feel only minor chest discomfort initially, but fractured ribs can cause internal bleeding or collapsed lungs hours later. Any significant impact to your torso from punches, kicks, or being thrown against objects can cause rib fractures. Sprains and strains from sudden movements, throws, or impacts can be more severe than they initially appear. What feels like minor stiffness might actually be significant joint damage or torn ligaments that require medical treatment to heal properly. Internal bleeding from kicks or punches to the torso can be completely invisible initially but can become life-threatening without treatment. Why medical evaluation is crucial. Some injuries become life-threatening hours after they occur. Internal bleeding can be slow and initially asymptomatic but can lead to shock or organ failure without treatment. Brain injuries can cause swelling that doesn't become apparent until hours later. What seems like a minor injury can have serious complications that only medical professionals can identify and monitor. Professional assessment catches what you might miss because medical professionals know what to look for and have tools to detect internal injuries. They can perform tests that reveal problems not visible on the surface. They can also establish a baseline for your condition and monitor for changes that might indicate developing complications. Medical records become crucial legal evidence that supports your claim of being attacked. The nature, location, and severity of your injuries tell a story about what happened and help establish that you were the victim of an unprovoked attack. Medical documentation is much more credible in court than your own testimony about your injuries. What to tell medical professionals. Be honest and complete when describing what happened to medical professionals. Tell them I was attacked and had to defend myself rather than minimizing the incident or trying to protect the attacker's reputation. Medical professionals need to know exactly what happened to provide appropriate care and to document your injuries properly. Describe all contact made during the encounter, even if it seemed minor at the time. If you were grabbed, pushed, thrown, struck, or if you fell or hit anything during the struggle, make sure the medical team knows about it. They need this information to know what injuries to look for and what tests might be necessary. Don't downplay any pain or discomfort, even if it seems minor compared to the trauma you just experienced. Medical professionals use your reported symptoms to guide their examination and determine what additional tests or treatment you might need. What seems insignificant to you might be a sign of a serious underlying injury. The adrenaline crash. Physical symptoms to expect. The adrenaline crash is your body's way of recovering from the massive chemical flood that helped you survive. When the immediate danger ends, your body begins to clear these powerful chemicals from your system, and this process can leave you feeling worse than you did during the actual attack. Understanding that this is normal and temporary helps you cope with what can be a very unsettling experience. Uncontrollable shaking or trembling hands is one of the most common and noticeable symptoms. Your hands might shake so badly that you can't hold a cup of coffee or sign your name clearly. This isn't fear or weakness, it's your nervous system recalibrating after extreme stress. The shaking usually subsides within a few hours but can be intense while it lasts. Extreme fatigue despite feeling wired is another common experience. You might feel simultaneously exhausted and unable to relax. Your mind might be racing while your body feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. This combination of mental alertness and physical exhaustion can be confusing and uncomfortable, but it's a normal part of your body's recovery process. The crash usually begins 2 to 6 hours after the incident, though the timing varies by individual and by the intensity of the encounter. You might feel fine immediately after the attack, even energized or relieved, only to feel terrible several hours later. This delayed reaction often surprises people who expect to feel their worst during the actual attack. The crash can last 24 to 48 hours in varying degrees, with symptoms coming and going in waves. You might feel better for a while, then suddenly feel exhausted or shaky again. Sleep patterns may be disrupted for several days, with difficulty falling asleep, frequent waking, or unusually vivid dreams being common experiences. Physical recovery time varies significantly by individual, your overall health, the intensity of the encounter, and how well you take care of yourself afterward. Some people recover quickly, while others need several days to feel physically normal again. Both responses are completely normal. How to manage the crash. Stay hydrated but avoid alcohol or drugs. Your body is working hard to process stress chemicals and recover from trauma, and it needs plenty of water to function properly. Alcohol might seem like it would help you relax, but it actually interferes with your body's natural recovery process and can make the crash worse. Eat light, nutritious meals even if you're not hungry. Your body needs fuel to recover, but your digestive system might be sensitive after the stress. Avoid heavy, greasy, or spicy foods that might upset your stomach. Simple, easily digestible foods like soup, toast, or fruit are often best. Rest, but don't isolate yourself completely. You need physical rest to recover, but you also need emotional support from people who care about you. Light physical activity like gentle walking can actually help your body process stress hormones more effectively than complete inactivity. Physical documentation. Immediate photo documentation. Take photos before swelling changes the appearance of injuries because swelling can obscure the true extent of damage or make injuries look different than they actually are. Fresh injuries often look worse several hours later as bruising develops and swelling increases, but sometimes they look better initially than they actually are. Use good lighting and multiple angles to capture the full extent of each injury. Take photos in natural light when possible, and use your phone's flash if necessary to show details clearly. Include a reference object for scale if possible. A coin, ruler, or your hand can help show the size of bruises or cuts. Don't wait to take photos because some bruising appears hours later, and you want to document the progression of your injuries. Take initial photos immediately, then additional photos over the next few days as bruising develops. This timeline of injury development can be important legal evidence. Medical record importance. Professional documentation carries much more legal weight than your own photos or testimony. Medical professionals are trained to assess and document injuries objectively, and their records are considered more credible in legal proceedings than personal documentation. Doctors can identify injuries you might miss because they know what to look for and have experience assessing trauma. They can distinguish between different types of injuries, assess their severity accurately, and identify injuries that might not be immediately apparent to an untrained observer. Medical records provide an objective timeline of your condition and establish the extent of the attack's impact on your health. They document not just visible injuries but also your mental state, your reported symptoms, and the medical professional's assessment of your overall condition. Evidence preservation. Keep all clothing, even if it's torn or bloody, because these items tell the story of the violence of the encounter. Torn clothing, bloodstains, and other damage provide physical evidence of the struggle and support your account of being attacked. Save any items that were broken during the struggle: glasses, jewelry, watches, or anything else that was damaged. These items demonstrate the force used against you and help establish the violent nature of the encounter. Document property damage with photos and preserve anything that shows the force used against you. If your phone screen was cracked, your purse was torn, or other personal items were damaged, these all support your claim that you were the victim of a violent attack. Legal importance of medical documentation. Supporting your self-defense claim. Injuries prove you were actually attacked rather than being the aggressor in a mutual fight. The location, type, and severity of your injuries tell a story about what happened and help establish that you were defending yourself rather than attacking someone else. Medical records corroborate your fear of harm by providing objective evidence of the violence used against you. When you say you feared for your safety, medical documentation of your injury supports that this fear was reasonable given the circumstances. The severity of your injuries can justify the level of force you used in self-defense. If your injuries are consistent with a serious attack, it supports your claim that you had to use significant force to protect yourself from death or serious bodily harm. Timing matters. Immediate medical attention shows genuine concern for your welfare and demonstrates that you took the attack seriously. If you were really attacked and feared for your safety, seeking immediate medical care is the natural response. Delayed treatment can be portrayed as suspicious by those who want to question your account. Questions like, if you were really hurt, why didn't you go to the hospital immediately, can be difficult to answer if you waited to seek medical care. Medical records provide an objective timeline that can be crucial if there are questions about when injuries occurred or how they were sustained. The medical timeline helps establish the sequence of events and supports your version of what happened. Medical professionals document the nature and extent of all injuries with a level of detail and expertise that laypeople cannot match. They describe injuries using precise medical terminology and assess their severity based on professional standards. They assess the consistency of injuries with your account of what happened. Medical professionals can often tell whether injuries are consistent with the story you've told about how they occurred, which can either support or undermine your credibility. They document your mental state during examination, noting whether you appear calm, distressed, confused, or otherwise affected by the incident. This documentation can be important in establishing the impact the attack had on you and supporting your claim of being traumatized by the experience. They provide a professional timeline of when injuries likely occurred based on their appearance and characteristics. Medical professionals can often estimate how old injuries are and whether they're consistent with the timeline you've provided about when the attack happened. Normal psychological responses. Survivor's guilt. Maybe I could have done something different. Even when you did everything right and had no choice but to defend yourself, you may experience overwhelming guilt about the outcome. This isn't logical, it's a normal psychological response to violence that affects even police officers and military personnel in clearly justified situations. Your brain keeps replaying the event, searching for alternatives that might have prevented injury or death. Survivor's guilt often manifests as thoughts like, if only I had walked away earlier, maybe I used too much force, or I should have tried harder to de-escalate. These thoughts can become obsessive and prevent you from moving forward. Remember that this guilt doesn't mean you did anything wrong, it means you're a normal person processing an abnormal situation. The fact that you feel guilty often indicates you're a good person who takes life seriously, not someone who acted inappropriately. Replay syndrome, constantly reliving the event. Your brain will replay the encounter repeatedly, often at random times throughout the day. You might find yourself analyzing every second of the incident, wondering about different choices you could have made, or mentally rehearsing how you could have handled it better. This replay can happen during conversations, while driving, or when you're trying to sleep. This mental replay serves a psychological purpose. Your brain is trying to process and make sense of the trauma. However, it can become overwhelming and interfere with daily functioning. The replays often focus on negative what-if scenarios rather than the reality that you survived a dangerous situation. Understanding that this is a normal part of trauma processing can help you manage it better when it occurs. Hypervigilance, jumping at every sound. After a violent encounter, your threat detection system remains on high alert. You may find yourself constantly scanning for danger, jumping at unexpected sounds, or feeling anxious in situations that never bothered you before. Your startle response becomes exaggerated, and you might feel like you can't relax or let your guard down anywhere. This hypervigilance is your brain's attempt to protect you from future threats, but it's exhausting and often interferes with normal activities. You might avoid places similar to where the incident occurred, feel uncomfortable with people behind you, or have difficulty concentrating because part of your attention is always scanning for threats. This response typically diminishes over time as your brain learns that you're safe in most situations. Emotional numbness, feeling disconnected. Some people experience the opposite of emotional volatility. They feel emotionally disconnected or numb. You might feel like you're watching your life from the outside, going through the motions without feeling engaged. Normal activities that used to bring joy or satisfaction may feel meaningless or distant. This emotional disconnection can be confusing and concerning. Emotional numbness is your brain's way of protecting you from overwhelming feelings. It's a temporary shutdown that allows you to function while your psyche processes the trauma. However, this numbness can affect relationships and make you feel isolated from others. Family and friends might notice that you seem distant or different, which can strain relationships when you need support most. What helps? Professional counseling finds someone experienced with trauma. Not all counselors are equipped to handle trauma from violent encounters. Look for therapists who specialize in PTSD, violent trauma, or critical incident stress. Military and police counselors often have relevant experience with justified violence situations. Avoid counselors who seem to judge your use of force or who don't understand the realities of self-defense. Good trauma counseling helps you process the event without getting stuck in guilt or replay cycles. A qualified therapist can teach you coping strategies, help you distinguish between normal trauma responses and concerning symptoms, and guide you through the healing process. Don't wait until you're severely impacted. Early intervention often prevents more serious long-term problems. Trusted support system, family/friends who understand. Choose carefully who you talk to about your experience. Well-meaning friends and family may offer advice that's not helpful or may judge your actions based on their own assumptions about violence. You need people who can listen without judgment and who understand that you were defending yourself, not looking for a fight. Consider connecting with others who have been through similar experiences, police officers, military veterans, or others who have had to use force in self-defense. They understand the psychological impact in ways that people who haven't experienced violence cannot. Support groups for trauma survivors can also provide valuable perspective and coping strategies. Physical activity helps process stress hormones. Your body produced massive amounts of stress hormones during the encounter, and physical activity helps metabolize these chemicals naturally. Regular exercise, even just walking, helps reduce anxiety, improve sleep, and restore normal hormone balance. Martial arts training can be particularly helpful as it rebuilds confidence while providing physical outlet. Avoid high-intensity activities initially if you're still emotionally volatile to moderate. Consistent exercise works better than sporadic intense workouts. Activities like swimming, hiking, or cycling can be meditative while providing physical benefits. The goal is to help your body return to normal baseline functioning, not to exhaust yourself further. Gradual return to normalcy. Don't isolate. Isolation compounds trauma by removing you from normal social support and activities that provide meaning and perspective. However, returning to normal activities should be gradual rather than forced. Start with small, comfortable activities and gradually expand your social engagement as you feel ready. Don't let family or friends push you to get over it too quickly, but also don't use the trauma as an excuse to withdraw permanently from life. Maintaining some routine and social connection helps prevent depression and keeps you grounded in normal life rather than becoming consumed by the incident. Balance processing time with engagement in regular activities. What doesn't help? Alcohol/drugs will delay processing. Alcohol and drugs might provide temporary relief from anxiety, guilt, or replay thoughts, but they interfere with your brain's natural healing process. Substance use prevents you from processing the trauma properly and often makes symptoms worse when the effects wear off. What starts as occasional relief can quickly become dependency as you try to avoid difficult emotions. Alcohol is particularly problematic because it's a depressant that can worsen emotional numbness and interfere with sleep quality. Even prescription anti-anxiety medications should be used cautiously and under professional supervision. Your brain needs to process this experience naturally, and substances that numb the processing actually prolong recovery. Isolation compounds the problem. When you're struggling with guilt, replay thoughts, or emotional numbness, isolation feels protective but actually makes everything worse. Without social connection and normal activities, your world shrinks down to just you and your trauma. Isolation prevents you from gaining perspective and removes the support system you need for healing. Isolation also allows negative thought patterns to become entrenched without outside perspective to challenge them. When you're alone with your thoughts, the guilt and what-if scenarios can become overwhelming. Regular interaction with trusted people helps maintain perspective and prevents you from disappearing into your own trauma responses. Replaying what-ifs focus on moving forward. While some initial processing is normal, getting stuck in endless what-if scenarios prevents healing and forward progress. These mental exercises rarely lead to useful insights because they're based on perfect hindsight rather than the reality of making split-second decisions under extreme stress. The what-if game has no winners. There's always another scenario you could imagine. Instead of asking, what if I had done X differently, focus on what can I learn from this experience, or how can I move forward positively? The past can't be changed, but you can control how you process the experience and what you do next. Productive processing focuses on integration and growth rather than endless second-guessing. Ignoring the impact, it affects everyone differently. Some people try to tough it out and pretend the encounter didn't affect them. This approach might work briefly, but trauma has a way of surfacing later, often at inconvenient times or in unexpected ways. Ignoring the psychological impact doesn't make it go away, it just delays the processing and often makes it more difficult when it finally emerges. Everyone processes trauma differently, there's no right way to respond. Some people bounce back quickly, others need months to fully process, and both responses are normal. Don't compare your recovery to others or assume that not showing obvious symptoms means you're unaffected. Pay attention to changes in your sleep, relationships, mood, or behavior, and address concerns early rather than waiting for them to become severe. Key takeaways. Survival is just the beginning. The real challenge starts after. Most people think the story ends when the threat is neutralized, but that's actually when your biggest challenges begin. The physical encounter might last 30 seconds, but the legal, medical, and psychological aftermath can last months or years. Your decisions in the hours and days following the incident often matter more than your decisions during the fight itself. The aftermath is where most people fail, not because they weren't prepared to defend themselves, but because no one taught them what comes next. You can win the physical encounter and still lose everything if you mishandle the police interaction, ignore medical needs, or fail to protect yourself legally. Understanding this reality is the first step toward complete preparedness. Legal preparation is as important as physical preparation. You can spend thousands of dollars on training, weapons, and equipment, but without legal preparation, you're only half ready. Having the best gun or the best training won't help you if you can't afford competent legal representation or if you don't know how to interact with police properly. Legal preparation isn't optional, it's a critical component of self-defense readiness. The legal system isn't automatically on your side just because you were defending yourself. District attorneys are politicians, juries are unpredictable, and the law is complex. Just as you wouldn't go into a gunfight without ammunition, you shouldn't go into a self-defense situation without legal protection. The few $100s spent on self-defense insurance and legal consultation can save you hundreds of thousands in legal fees and civil judgments. Your response in the aftermath determines the outcome. The same incident can result in completely different outcomes depending on how you handle the aftermath. Two people can defend themselves in identical situations, but one ends up thanked by police while the other gets arrested, simply because of how they managed the scene. Your words, actions, and decisions in those critical first hours determine whether you're treated as a victim or a suspect. This isn't about manipulation or deception, it's about understanding how the system works and protecting yourself accordingly. The person who calls 911 first, points out evidence and witnesses, uses the right language with police, and gets proper medical documentation is much more likely to be seen as the innocent victim they actually are. Preparation for this phase is just as important as preparation for the physical encounter. Professional help is strength, not weakness. There's a dangerous cultural myth that asking for help after defending yourself shows weakness or guilt. The truth is exactly the opposite. Getting professional help shows wisdom, responsibility, and strength. Police officers and military personnel routinely receive counseling after critical incidents, not because they're weak, but because it's the smart thing to do. Whether it's legal counsel, medical evaluation, or psychological support, professional help improves your outcomes and speeds your recovery. Trying to tough it out alone often leads to worse problems down the road. Strong people recognize when they need expert assistance and get it promptly. Your ego isn't worth your freedom, your health, or your future. You defended your life, now protect your future. Successfully defending yourself physically is a huge accomplishment that deserves recognition. You survived a situation that could have ended very differently, and you should be proud of your ability to protect yourself when it mattered most. However, surviving the attack is only the first victory. Now you need to protect the future you fought to preserve. Don't let poor decisions in the aftermath destroy what you fought to save. You risked everything to survive that encounter, so don't lose everything afterward through preventable mistakes. Your life is worth defending, and your future is worth protecting. The same determination and preparation that got you through the physical encounter should guide you through the legal and psychological challenges that follow. Action items for viewers. Research self-defense insurance options. Don't wait until you need it to research self-defense insurance. Compare different organizations like USCCA, Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network, and others to understand what coverage they provide and what they cost. Look at their attorney networks, coverage limits, and whether they cover civil defense as well as criminal defense. Read the fine print about what situations are covered and what requirements you must meet. Consider this insurance as essential as car insurance or health insurance if you carry defensive tools or expect you might need to defend yourself. The annual cost is typically less than what you'd spend on a nice dinner out each month, but it could save you hundreds of thousands if you ever need it. Don't assume your homeowner's insurance or other policies will cover self-defense situations. They usually don't. Identify an attorney in your area. Research attorneys in your area who specialize in self-defense cases and have actual trial experience. Look for lawyers who understand your state's laws, have defended similar cases, and are available for emergency consultations. Meet with them during normal business hours to establish a relationship before you need them under emergency conditions. Get their contact information and understand their availability for emergency situations. Some attorneys offer retainer arrangements that guarantee their services. Ask about their experience with local prosecutors and courts. Familiarity with local legal culture can be invaluable. Don't wait until you are in custody to start looking for legal representation. Understand your state's self-defense laws. Study your state's self-defense laws thoroughly, including recent changes and court interpretations. Understand the difference between duty to retreat and stand your ground laws, and know which applies in your state. Learn about Castle Doctrine provisions and whether they apply to your home, workplace, or vehicle. Understand the legal definitions of terms like imminent threat and reasonable force. Take a legal self-defense class if available in your area, preferably taught by attorneys familiar with your jurisdiction. Read actual court cases to understand how laws are applied in practice, not just what they say in theory. Remember that laws change, so stay updated on new legislation or court decisions that might affect your rights and obligations. Plan your magic words for police interaction. Memorize and practice the key phrases you'll use when police arrive. Officer, I was attacked and feared for my life. I defended myself. I want to cooperate fully, but I'd like to speak with an attorney first. I'll point out evidence and witnesses, but I'd prefer to give my detailed statement with counsel present. Practice saying this calmly and clearly until it becomes automatic. Plan how you'll identify witnesses and evidence without giving detailed statements about what happened. Think about how you'll request medical attention and how you'll handle detention if it occurs. Having these responses prepared ahead of time prevents you from making critical mistakes when you're under stress and running on adrenaline. Consider trauma counseling resources. Research trauma counselors in your area who have experience with violent encounters and critical incidents. Look for therapists who work with police officers, military personnel, or others who have experienced justified use of force. Get contact information and understand their availability for urgent situations. Don't wait until you're severely impacted to identify professional help. Early intervention is much more effective than waiting until trauma responses become entrenched. Consider this preparation just as important as identifying legal representation. Your mental health affects every other aspect of your recovery and legal case. Final thought. You trained to survive the attack. Now train to survive the aftermath. Because protecting your life includes protecting your future.